Okay, Lori, could you tell us a little bit about what you think is important when teaching ELLs, social studies?
Okay, one of the things that I feel sometimes teachers feel is that they're a little bit scared to teach their ELLs because they're not quite sure, well, what do they know and what do I have to do differently? So one of the things that I think could really help teachers is to realize that having students that have a different background coming into your class is really a huge asset. You can make the classroom instruction much more interesting by drawing on what those students have for background knowledge. In some ways, a teacher might feel a little bit more apprehensive about it in the beginning because they're not quite sure, well, what is that student going to say? But as I have spoken with social studies teachers, and they've actually taken the risk of trying to draw on their ELL's background knowledge, they've found that it really livened their class up because these students have very rich experiences that are different, and it gets the other students in the class thinking, oh wow, they never thought about that. So it's very different than drawing on the background knowledge of what the teacher might be looking. The teacher might say, okay, well, I'm going to draw an example from football, or I'm going to draw an example from sewing, or whatever. It may be very different from what those ELLs draw on, and it might really make the class a lot more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I think is important is to understand what types of vocabulary are going to pose a problem for the student. And a lot of times we think, oh, this vocabulary here is just specific to social studies, so maybe they don't have that. But there actually may be a lot of other types of vocabulary that the students don't have. Today, in fact, working with my students, they had a reading assignment, and I thought that the vocabulary that they would come up with would have a lot of specific terms that were specific to the content that we were talking about. But it turned out that they had more of everyday language, things like bizarre, that happened to be written about, or none of the other words are coming to mind right now, but the terms were not necessarily specific to the environment, which is what we were talking about. It wasn't the atmospheric and the carbon dioxide words. It was more of everyday language that maybe they don't hear. It might have been just a little bit above what their level of speaking was, so they didn't, they hadn't connected with those particular words before.
So that a lot of the everyday language and vocabulary was used in examples, and then they weren't able to tap into those, or what happened in the class?
They said that those were words that when they came to it in the reading assignment that they had to look it up because they weren't familiar with it, they hadn't seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
So then we ended up using that in the class to have them build and work on it and develop that vocabulary. But it wasn't just specific to the content that we were discussing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else? Where